Where's his? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 6:30, and I will call this regular meeting of the Burnsville City Council to order. It is our tradition to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and we invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have announcements, and our announcements have to do with all of our upcoming meetings. Regular council meetings are scheduled for Tuesday, March 21st, and Tuesday, April 4th. We also have a work session that's scheduled for Tuesday, March 14th at 6:30 p.m. All meetings are held here in the council chambers. And then we move on to additions to the final agenda, and that is for emergency items only. Ms. Johnston, are there any emergency items to come before the body?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Okay, members of the council? Thank you. We will then move on to the, before we move on to the consent agenda, we have citizens' comments. Is there anyone who wishes to address the council on an item that is not on the printed agenda and not an application form that will be coming before us at a future date? Are you about the robotics? Yes, I was going to do that right after I find out if there's anybody who's, yes, and we're going to recognize you and you're going to do that. Is there anyone who wishes to address the council on an item that is not on the printed agenda and not an application form that will be coming before us at a future date? Seeing no one, I will now have the Burnsville robotics team. Please come to the podium. Tell us about your work and what you're presenting to us this evening. And then if you could also introduce all of the candidates that are here and your two volunteer supervisors.
Well, we are Team 758, the Pride from Burnsville, Minnesota. I am Katie, I'm a freshman.
I'm Kiana, I'm in 8th grade.
I'm Jacob, I'm in 9th grade.
I'm Christian, and I am a 11th grader at Burnsville High School.
So with us today, we have our two mentors, Heather Wahlberg and April Larson. They have helped us grow through the years. First, we are honored that you would spare some of your precious time to allow us to explain what robotics really means to our community. Before we get too into robotics ideas, I have a few questions. How many of you, and this is for the audience too, know about FIRST Robotics? Okay. Well, robotics is a sport for the mind, and we all agree with that. What do you guys think that robotics is about?
Why don't you just proceed and tell us all about it?
We would like to start by explaining to you what the core value of FTC means. The core value is gracious professionalism.
That means you always want everyone to succeed, whether or not you are competing against or with someone. That, of course, doesn't mean we still don't want to win. A quote from FIRST is, "With gracious professionalism, fierce competition and mutual gain are not separate notions."
Gracious professionalism isn't just something we use on competition day. We try our best to keep it in mind everywhere we go, even outside robotics. One place where we really use gracious professionalism is our outreach events.
As a fourth-year team, we've done plenty of community building and outreach events throughout the years. We really pride ourselves on how much we talk to younger kids. We love to take school visits. We've gone to William Byrne, Ron, and Harriet Bishop to talk to them about how much fun robotics is. I also taught a Lego class at Sky Oaks with 2 4th and 5th graders. Sky Oaks has the highest percentage of minorities, and it's the lowest performing elementary school in District 191, so we thought it would be important to spread our love and knowledge of robotics to these kids. Classes were free, and we taught around 80 kids robotics in just 4 weeks.
We know that outreach like this sparks an interest in robotics because since we have been doing these visits, the number of teams in Burnsville has skyrocketed. In 2014, there were only 2 teams in Burnsville. Now we are a group of 8 teams.
My brother's on a robotics team, and his whole team joined because the Pride visited their school. It's the whole reason I joined.
Exactly. That's how we know we are bringing new members to the Burnsville Robotics program. There are currently 55 students in the FTC program here in Burnsville. We always loved and wish for the program to continue to grow over the next few years. To grow our program, we have to fundraise. The Pride has hosted a lot of fundraisers over the past year. We did a car wash with the Epilepsy Foundation. No, wrong one. We did a car wash with a couple Burnsville teams and did a donation drive with the Epilepsy Foundation. We also got grants from Metcalf PTO, Best Buy, and PTC. We have fundraised over $5,000 for Burnsville Robotics.
When you subtract what we spent, we've raised over $4,400 to support the 7 other Burnsville teams in our district. We bring in the most money out of all the FTC teams in our district.
Our team and other teams spend that money on things like parts and tournament fees. We also spend money on plastic filament for our 3D printer.
We won a MakerBot 200 at the Minnesota State Competition in 2016, and this is where we print our smaller parts and where we print parts for the other Burnsville teams. All they have to do is send us the CAD file and we print it for them free of charge. We even let them pick the color.
We are so thankful that we were given the 3D printer. We've gotten to learn so much about the CAD and how 3D printers work. How a 3D printer works is that the plastic gets heated up and it extrudes in the shape of your choice. If you can think it, you can pretty much make it.
Some of the awards that we have won this year are Inspire, 3rd place, and 2nd place, which is the highest award you can win at any tournament. We have also won Connect, Promote, and we were on the Winning Alliance and a Finalist Alliance, and we've won the Stratasys Award.
Christian, you're up.
Okay, so how our robot works is, well, for the challenge we had to pick up the balls that are currently in the robot. You know, they're about 4 inches in diameter. We had to pick them up, which is what the conveyor belt thing at the front of our robot with the paddles on it does. It sweeps the ball into our robot and then brings them up into the robot. And then we had to shoot them into a goal in the center of a field, and which I'm sure you saw at the Burnsville tournament if you went to it. You obviously know what the game is, but we had to shoot the balls into there, and then, which is what the red part in our robot does. It's all 3D printed except for the motors. It works by sort of like a slingshot does.
Yeah.
So it'll pull it back, and then it releases, and then surgical tubing fires the balls into the center goal. So that's about it.
Now, our game is split up into 3 parts. Autonomous, where the robot rubs itself, and the programmers program the robot to do something that helps our lines move points, and the programming tells the robot what to do. Teleop, which is the driver control period, and endgame, where points for doing certain actions are worth more points. Robotics has helped me and impacted my life in so many ways. The main way is getting me out of my comfort zone and taking the lead in more places outside of robotics. This has helped me because I've started to be more involved with the community and helping with things like this and being able to talk to more people.
Robotics has helped me explore the engineering side of writing. I've also learned how to reach out to younger students and talk in a professional manner. I'll use these skills for the rest of my life.
Robotics has helped me to be less shy and to be more open for new ideas.
So robotics has taught me obviously technical skills of how to build a robot, but also a lot more such as public speaking and note taking and stuff like that. Because at tournaments, it's robot based, but also the other half of it is we have to get judged in the morning. We have to present an engineering notebook. So there are just as many judged awards as there are robot awards.
Our objective for coming here today was to inform all of you about robotics and how it's impacted all of us. We want to thank you for allowing us to come here and coming to talk to you. Now, Christian is going to do a demo of what our robot does.
Okay,
So, a robot can obviously
I think,
drive around.
Turns into a unit. It's more a tower.
That's great.
Show it from the other way so you guys can see how it works.
Yep. And that's the other trick, is to scoop them up. And they're fed. You have to scoop them up after they're fed in and do it, so you don't get to start running. See what I'm saying?
how did you do in competition with this model?
At our first tournament, we were on the winning alliance, and then at our second tournament, we were on the finalist alliance, which is the second place alliance. So overall, we did pretty well at the two competitions we went to before state.
Okay.
Cool.
Very good. Thank you so much for coming in. Continue the good work, and we'll probably see you at one of your competitions if it's here. I've gone to the one in Bloomington also, so, okay, thank you. Yes, Councilmember
Mayor, can I
Coughlin.
just be recognized? Heather, I'd like to have you stand up and be recognized. You're the coordinator of all 8 teams. It's all volunteer work. She does an amazing job. There's 55 students. She's helped grow it from 2 teams to 8 teams, and they do an amazing job. And thank you for helping the youth for the future of Burnsville. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, in the past, I've been working with Darcy. What is she doing now? I know she's on the school board. She got elected, but is she?
She actually works for the FRC teams.
Okay.
Which is the high school level. So
Yes.
9th through 12th grade. This is 7th through 12th graders.
Yes.
So this is called FTC.
Yeah.
So, yep, so she's still doing that.
Oh, yes, I know, because she told me. I said, well, we're getting it, but yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you, Heather. All right, thank you so much. Now we move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a group of items that's considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. However, an item on the consent agenda can be removed for a separate discussion and vote. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes an item on the consent agenda to be removed for a separate discussion and vote? Anyone who wishes an item to be removed for a separate discussion and vote? Ms. Johnston?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Members of the council? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Mayor,
approve.
just a question to City Manager Johnston. Was the item that I was talking about, is that on only the EDA? Or is
Madam
it
Mayor,
a-
Councilmember
Yeah.
Keeley, that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And we have a special meeting. So Councilmember Gustafson makes the motion.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Schultz. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. We now move on to the regular agenda. The first item on the regular agenda is item number 5, and item number 5 is a public hearing. This is to approve on-sale Sunday on-sale liquor license for Eastgate Entertainment LLC, doing business as Venue 13, located at 3120 East Highway 13. Michelle Collins, our city clerk, is presenting this item this evening. Ms. Collins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council. This is an application from Eastgate Entertainment LLC as the new owner for the Venue 13 establishment. They indicated that in most respects, they expect the operation will remain the same. The police have conducted the investigation and the principals involved found no reason to deny the application. The license issues will be contingent upon all the fees, insurance, and inspections, and also approval from the Minnesota Department of Alcohol and Gambling. I did not hear back if the applicant, is the applicant here? No, the applicant is not here tonight. This is a public hearing. I stand for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Collins? Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Members of the council, your pleasure.
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Keeley makes a motion, second by Councilmember Coughlin. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. The next item is a public hearing. And this is a resolution ordering improvements and approving the plans and specifications and ordering the advertisement for bids for the 2017 street rehabilitation project. Mr. Ryan Peterson, our city engineer, is presenting this evening. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you very much. As the mayor stated, this will be our annual street rehabilitation, reclamation, and reconstruction project meeting where you guys are, where the city council considers ordering our projects. Sorry. We'll first go through the process overview. We'll go through a project overview, special assessment methodology, and then please note there are 3 separate public hearings. We'll go through street rehabilitation first, street reclamation second, and then the public hearing to consider the narrowing of Crystal Lake Road. That will be the last. So if you're here to discuss that one, please wait till the end of the third public hearing for that item. So with that, this is true of all the items. In May of 2016, the council ordered a study be done for the 2017 program. We completed survey work and preliminary plans. In January, we held a neighborhood meeting, took notes from property owners, completed our study and completed our plans. And at this time, we're at the public hearing where the council considers ordering the improvements. If they move forward, we'll work on bidding the projects. Council will consider awarding contracts in April. The reconstruction reclamation projects will have a second neighborhood meeting after we gain some more information. We expect construction to begin around town in May. We will be mailing assessment letters for, obviously, for the assessments in August. And then we also expect construction to be complete this year in August. And then I will hold the second public hearing for assessments in September. After that, the assessments are levied, and then there's 30 days to pay those, or they will be financed by the city. And I have more discussion on that later on. So with that, we'll get into the first item, 2017 Street Rehabilitation Project, 17102. We have one area, the Greenhaven area. We have a map on where exactly that is, but basically that is resurfacing the road, not removing all the pavement and gravel. It's milling off the top 2 inches and repaving it. We fix curb and gutter where they're damaged, make American with Disability Act improvements as necessary for accessibility, and then localized utility repairs to things at the surface like manholes and catch basins and gate valves and those sorts of things. Some notes on them. Access, generally, the roads will remain hard surfaced. At this, there may be some open areas with some cones around, but access will generally be available. And also to driveways and that sort of thing, we won't be removing all access. People will be able to generally get to their homes. They may have to park by the street sometime, but it's not like you won't be able to get into the area at all. Schedule, this likely will take about a month once it starts and will be occurring sometime during the summer. We want to know if there's any weddings, graduation parties, that sort of thing. We can try and facilitate those, but we can't if we don't know about them. So for anyone out there who has those type of events, please let us know. We have communication avenues on all of our letters that we send out, so you can get a hold of us pretty easily that way. And then we'll make our the area as accessible as possible if we know about these types of events. We also have websites for the different projects. You can sign up for weekly updates once they get going at burnsville.org/streetrecon. And once again, we can assist anybody who needs assistance getting those. We send out a letter before any project starts, and those have our inspector's cell phone contacts on them. We want you to give us a call if you're having problems before it gets too big. So we'll try to solve the concerns when they're hopefully small. So with that, I'll get into the actual area, and this is the Greenhaven area, which includes Greenhaven Drive from Crystal Lake Road up to Burnhaven Drive and then down to Buck Hill Road. Burnhaven Drive from Crystal Lake Road to Greenhaven Drive, and then Greenhaven Lane from Greenhaven Drive to Greenhaven Drive. For many of you, you've seen me show a series of pictures through the years. We're going to try a little different method tonight. This is a GIS-based application that will hopefully be of interest and make it a little easier for everyone to understand where we're at while looking at a picture. So on the right, you can see where the picture was taken, and then on the left shows the actual photograph of the situation. So the first one is Greenhaven Drive looking northeast, and this is what it looks like or looked like last fall. And you can see there's some patching in there, and it needs some resurfacing. This is Greenhaven Drive looking south. I can give you a blow-up of this. When you start seeing cracking like this, if we don't resurface it now, we'll be into the more full-scale type of project. So this is the time to continue with these improvements. Greenhaven Drive looking east, Burnhaven Drive looking south, and then Greenhaven Drive looking west or up the hill. And once again, we've done some patching over here, but these won't last too much longer. It's definitely time to complete some rehabilitation work. So funding for the project, sewer and water and stormwater utility fund is estimated to take a little over $100,000. Our state aid account, or the city's gas tax funding, $170,000. Special assessments, $225,000, and our infrastructure trust fund, or the general taxes, is $730,000. Those are all estimates. What does it look like in a pie graph? Assessments pay approximately 31% of the project costs. And special assessments, they're based upon 40% of the street costs to do the work. What we do is we take the average cost of the past 3 years and average that out, multiply it by 40%, and then we can get $1 per rate that we would set each year when our fees and charges. And then we take each parcel, the amount of footage adjacent to the road being improved, times that rate, and then that's how you get your assessment. It's based upon each parcel's land use, so if you have a single-family residential adjacent to a wide road, you don't have to pay for the entire wide road. Vice versa, if you have a more intense use next to a narrow road, you don't pay for the entire width of the road. Once we take the,
Peterson?
yes,
Somehow, can you pull your mic up so that people can hear you? I guess they're not hearing you very well.
I'm,
And I know that you have a
Yeah.
very good outside voice.
I do. I oftentimes have to yell at 5 and 9-year-olds, so I'm good at that, so,
I know you
yeah.
are,
Is
so
this,
I'm not sure. Are we
They're
getting
doing both, they're
feedback?
trying to do
Yeah.
both, so
Okay, I
we'll just
will,
make adjustments, and I'm gonna look at the person who raised the issue, and
Okay.
hopefully she can hear.
I
and the
will
rest of the
attempt to
people can hear
speak
her.
up.
Thank you.
All right, let's see here, so where were we? Once we get our bids, we actually figure out the cost that it is, and if the assessments at the rate proposed is more than 40% of the cost, we reduce the assessment rate down to 40%, so that way we know residents aren't paying more than 40% of the street costs. There we go, I think I'm hearing something a little different. So the remainder of the street costs and all utility improvements will be paid for by the city funds. If assessments aren't paid within the first 30 days after the hearing in September, the city finances those. They'd be paid off over a period of years. For assessments $200 and under, that has to be paid off in 1 year. Between $200 and $1,000 is 5 years. 1,000 and 2,000 is 10 years, and in assessments over 2,000, you have 15 years to pay those. You have to pay interest on those because it costs the city money to finance it. We have to borrow money to do so. So the interest rate for 2017 is 4%. In this particular area, all of them are multifamily, and so the rate per foot is $18.99. There's many multi-owner parcels in this particular area. So what you do there is you take, if there's 50 units and the total assessment is 5,000, then each one would be paying $100. So each one split up equally on multi-owner parcels. We haven't received any written correspondence prior to this, so if someone wants to officially make their comments known, that needs to be received by the end of the meeting. And with that, I would take any questions. It's a public hearing. We'll be doing street reclamation next, and then once again, there will be a final hearing for the narrowing of Crystal Lake Road.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Peterson? Okay, thank you, Mr. Peterson. This is a public hearing. I will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Anyone who wishes to speak to the rehabilitation item that have to do with Greenhaven? Yes, please come to over here and give us your name and address for the record.
Sure. Mark Cleveland. I'm at 604 Crystal Lake Road East.
Now, this is just for the rehabilitation, not the Crystal Lake?
Oh, this is not for the Crystal Lake.
No,
Oh,
no,
I'm
no.
sorry.
This is rehabilitation.
My miss.
Yeah, Greenhaven. Okay, we will let you know which streets we're talking about. This is the Greenhaven project rehabilitation. And you're interested in the narrowing of,
No.
no.
No, this is about resurfacing.
Oh, resurfacing. Okay, that's coming up.
That'll be the next one.
That'll be the next one. Yes. Okay, anybody who wants to speak to this particular item? This is rehabilitation of Greenhaven Drive Avenue. Okay, the area that you saw on the monitor. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Members of the council, your pleasure.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Coughlin makes the motion, second by Councilmember Gustafson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. The next item is item number 7. This is also a public hearing. This is a resolution to order the improvements and approve the plans and specifications and order the advertisement for bids for the 2017 street remediation project. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you very much. Once again, so this is project 17103, street reclamation. We have 5 different area projects: North Crystal Lake area, Highland Forest 4th and 5th edition, Crosstown Estates 2nd edition, Knoll Circle, and then the Portland cul-de-sac. So that's 17103A to 17103E. And we will go over which those are with maps and those sorts of things. So this is street reclamation. This is different than street rehabilitation. This
Yeah.
is where we grind up the entire road bed and the gravel underneath it to create new gravel. And then one exception to that is in the North Crystal Lake area, there is no existing gravel that we were able to find when we did our exploration. So we will be providing that one with the new project here, but our process will be just a little bit different. But regardless, all the streets will get a new pavement section. And curb replacement, that will only be happening where it's damaged now. We won't be doing all of it. And then we'll be making similar sidewalk and American with Disability Act repairs as necessary. There may be some tree removals, particularly if they're really close to the curb and they've had problems. It affects the usability of the road, or if there's a tree that's in really poor condition, sometimes we also remove it with the project as well. Utility work, mostly localized improvements. This will not be the one where we're digging water main all the way throughout the area, just be more localized in our water distribution system. Sewer rehabilitation, once again, we can fix those generally from the inside out by lining them, as opposed to having to excavate and replace them all. Storm sewer improvements, we evaluate the drainage of all the different areas, and we extend it in a few situations, put more catch basins in as necessary to try to get more capacity. And then street lighting, we repair deficient street lights, or not repair, we replace them, or work with the utility companies that provide them as necessary within those project areas. Once again, notes, more critical on this than the street reclamation or rehabilitation is these graduation partings and weddings. We can have a definite effect on those if you're planning to have a graduation. So party, we want to know about it ahead of time. Please let us know so that we can not be working on Saturday when you're having all your company over in that area, making parking available and all those sorts of things. So let us know. We will work with everyone as good as we can do it. We've been doing this for 20-some years and through these parties, and we'll do it successfully again this year. There should be very limited mail service modification with street reclamation since it's not replacement. We're hopeful the postal service will continue just to go as it always has, as opposed to having the banks of mailbox outside the project area. However, they do make the final determination. Schedule, there'll be multiple phases and different contracts for it, but we'll be starting in some areas in May, and we're proposing to finish all the work before Labor Day. And property access during the project, you should be able to get into your driveway each night. The only caveat to that is if we're actually replacing the curb in front of it, there will be times when the curb actually has to cure and you can't drive over it, but you'll be able to park next to your home and that sort of thing in those situations. Once again, we have the website talked about earlier, burnsville.org/street recon. Sign up for weekly updates there. We send out letters, have a second neighborhood meeting, provide contacts, so we try and provide as much communication as possible on these projects. We do use stockpile materials in our city parks. We do this for sustainability reasons. One thing we won't do is impact playground areas. We're not going to take a playground equipment out of service, but we find some open areas that are less used. The reason why we use the city parks is it's usually right in the area, reduces costs, reduce wear and tear on other city streets. We've been doing that for many years as well. We'll restore the turf areas after they're done. And then we do notify residents around the area prior to, we don't just show up one day with a bunch of gravel without anyone having any idea it's coming. So, in this area, we used this area last year, the Highland Forest Park. The terrace area, which I'll get into, is right over here, Upton Avenue, Terrace Drive. We just used this area last year. We had minimal complaints, and we expect to use this wisely and not take advantage of it again this year. But we will not have any major area in Crystal Lake, but we will work with the contractors to find some suitable locations. So, this is North Crystal Lake area, obviously a very extensive amount of streets. I'll go through those so people understand if there's streets in this area. It includes Chestnut Drive from South Cross Drive down to Tyaki Drive. Tyaki Drive from Chestnut Drive all the way down to Crystal Lake Road, including the cul-de-sac. Interlochen Road from Portland Avenue to Chestnut Drive. Butternut Lane from east of Portland over to Tyaki Drive. We've already completed the work in these two areas, that's why they're not included. Chestnut Circle from Chestnut Drive to the south cul-de-sac. 152nd Street from Portland Avenue to Tyaki Drive. Swanson Circle from Portland Avenue to its cul-de-sac. Oakland Avenue from east of Chestnut Drive down to the cul-de-sac. Once again, we already have completed this section, which is why it's not included. Rushmore Drive from Chicago Avenue to Park Avenue, 152nd Street from Chicago Avenue to Park Avenue, and then 151st Street from Chicago Avenue to Oakland Drive, Park Avenue from Rushmore Drive, up to the north to these three different cul-de-sacs. Lead Street from Rushmore Drive down to Crystal Lake Road. Let's see here, 153rd Street from Tyaki Drive to Crystal Drive West and Crystal Terrace from 153rd Street to the north. Crystal Lake Road East, all the way from Tyaki Drive over to Lac Lavon Drive, including the southerly cul-de-sac. Crystal Drive East from Crystal Lake Road East to Crystal Drive West, and then Crystal Drive West from Crystal Lake Road East to Crystal Drive East. So it gets very interesting naming in there on some of these, but I think I got them. Please note that this is the area where the narrowing will be considered. If it doesn't move forward, it's included in this project. So the improvements that you'd be considering will include the reclamation if it moves forward. And then if it's decided to be narrowed, then that would supersede the approval for reclamation. All right, thanks for your patience as I went through those. Once again, we use this GIS application to look at some pictures in the area and kind of get an idea of where they're at. So once again, the map, the location of where it is at is over on the right, and then the actual picture is on the left from this fall. So this is Crystal Lake Road looking west, and this is Crystal Lake Road looking west once again. This is 153rd Street looking west. And you can get a good idea that the roads in here are in total need of replacement. This would be an area here where we would be replacing the curb, but you know, sections like this would all stay then because the curb is still in adequate condition. Tyaki Drive looking north. You can see lots of patching done in the past. Crystal Drive looking west. 152nd Street looking west. Park Avenue looking east. On these, we are planning on removing the curb, that's drive-over curb in there. They just don't seem to be performing well for us. 151st Street looking east. Oakland Avenue looking south. And then this is probably the most distressed picture that I was able to see here. But this road, if we don't get to it, we're gonna have to turn to gravel, I think. So you can see the curbs will still be staying. They're still okay. It is the road that is the paved area that needs the replacement. And then Tyaki Drive looking south, just some patches that have been there for quite a while. And then Tyaki Drive looking north. Chestnut Circle looking south. And that's what I have for pictures in this area. The other areas are not this large, so it won't take quite as long to go through them. The second area, Highland Forest, 4th and 5th edition, includes Penn Avenue from Williams Drive down to Brookview Drive, Terrace Drive from Oliver Avenue to Upton Avenue, including the two northerly cul-de-sacs, and then Terrace Circle from Terrace Drive down to the south. Couple photographs on this one. This is Terrace Drive looking east. And then this is a picture of one of the cul-de-sacs. You can see it's, the cracks are now coming through our patches, and in front of the driveways are in terrible shape. And then this one, you can just see we're cracked all the way up and down with extensive patching going on throughout this is throughout the whole neighborhood. And then this is Penn Avenue looking north. All right, Crosstown Estates includes Slater Lane from Burnsville Parkway all the way to its westerly cul-de-sac, including the southerly cul-de-sac. And then Lakota Lane from Burnsville Parkway up to Slater Lane, including the access point into the multifamily to the south, and also Lakota Lane cul-de-sac to the north. Oops. And then once again, the pictures pretty much speak for themselves once again, that we do need to complete this work, just extensive patching. And this is the Slater Lane cul-de-sac, and then this is Lakota Lane cul-de-sac, looks very similar. Lakota Lane looking southeast, and then Slater Lane looking east. Dan and his crew have been in here with lots of patching, but he can't hold it together any longer, I guess is the moral of the story. And then Knoll Circle and Portland Avenue cul-de-sacs, 103D and E. Knoll Circle from First Avenue to the west, and Knoll Circle from First Avenue to the east, and then Portland Avenue from McAndrews Road to the north. So these are two remnants from, we've done, this is just south of City Hall. We've done most of the streets already. These are two cul-de-sacs that haven't made it into the program yet. And then Portland Avenue, also some of the roads have been completed around there. And this is a picture of Knoll Circle, or this is Portland Avenue South around the loop looking to the south. This is the westerly cul-de-sac and the easterly cul-de-sac. So once again, need for replacement. Let's see. Okay. So funding for the project, almost $3 million out of the city's infrastructure trust fund, which is the taxes that we collect for this purpose. Special assessments, $810,000 is estimated. Sewer and water, stormwater utility funds, a total of about $750,000 out of the utility fund. So that's significantly less than some years on a utility. Sometimes the water and sewer is up to $3 million itself. So there isn't much water main replacement as we described earlier. What does that look like in the pie chart? Well, this is an infrastructure trust fund is taking the majority of it. Special assessments, just under 20% of the total project cost. Assessments, it's the same as rehab, but they're based upon 40% of the street costs. We take the similar projects and average those out from the past 3 years, multiply it by 0.4 or 40% to determine what the rate should be for 40% of the street costs. Multiply each parcel with the amount of footage adjacent to the street being improved, and then that gets you your assessment rate. It's based upon the street size needed for the land use. So we make adjustments either way, so that you're not paying for an entire wide street if you're a residential parcel, or they're not paying for extra for a narrow street with an apartment building or something like that. Once again, we'll evaluate after we receive bids. If assessments are paying more than 40% of the cost, they will be reduced. They will not go higher. And then all the remainder of the costs are paid for by the city funds. If the assessments aren't paid within 30 days after the hearing in September, then they can be financed over a period of years. Interest would be due on that because of the cost that we encumber to finance those. The assessment rates for street reclamation are $17.49 per foot for single-family homes, $28.05 for multifamily, and $44.80 per foot for all other land uses. This is something we put together in 2015 just to kind of give people an idea what assessments are in our immediate vicinity. Now, caveat to this is street reconstruction, including a lot of curbs. This year, we're not doing much of that work, so it might not be total apples to apples. But for a new driving surface and new pavement, we are still considerably lower than all of our neighbors around us. And then we haven't received any written comments to this point on the reclamation, if you don't consider the narrowing of Crystal Lake Road that has been considered. So with that, I would stand for any questions. This is a public hearing, and then we'll get into the reconstruction or the narrowing of Crystal Lake Road next.
Okay, Councilmember Keeley.
Just one question, Mr. Peterson, might be a good time to elaborate on how the streets are chosen each year. The photographs would lead me, if I was in the crowd or at home watching the TV, that the condition of the road dictated that it needed to be done this year. But as I understand it now, after being here a few years, there's a few other factors that go into the formula to make the determination which roads get done each year.
Yep.
Can you elaborate a little bit on, educate the group?
So we have a pavement management program. So we evaluate 1/3 of the streets each year, and then they get a pavement rating. And that, I mean, that's a very large factor in what we use. We also figure out what we can afford to do via via utilities. This year, it happens that we're repairing or making improvements to our groundwater plant over at the treatment plant, and that's been in service since the early 70s. So it's time to upgrade that. Therefore, we aren't doing projects that need the water main replaced. So this year, we chose streets that are a little bit newer, but yet still really need all of this work. So that's a big factor. Also, we meet with our utility superintendents on an annual basis to be sure that there's nothing that's come to the surface recently. So it's part science on pavement management, part what funding can we get for what area, and then also there's some definite staff judgment, and I guess that's what I would say on that. Also, we plan out for 15 years. So our capital improvement plan shows 5 years, and we include a map there, but we do identify out for 15 years what we're thinking. And those maps aren't hard and true. Sometimes a road can degrade much quicker than a road next to it, so that it gets pushed back and another one gets pushed up.
So you know basically what's coming over the next 15 years, and you adjust as needed. I know that there was in a neighborhood I lived in just a few months ago until I moved. It was a mill and overlay because it was a late 80s pavement that deteriorated very rapidly based on the standards that MnDOT was issuing at that time. And so that shuffled around some things a little bit, but ultimately the streets that were in the greatest need were addressed.
Yes, that's subject to opinion as well.
There's a lot of them at one point 5 years ago that were needing to be addressed. We've done a good job in investment in street repair, where I think I have gotten less comments about poor road conditions in the last year than 5 years ago, where it was a very common complaint on a regular basis. So I think we've done some great work in revitalizing our streets.
Well, that's very good news. I'm very glad to hear that. And then also, I guess a factor, if the road, we don't want to resurface a road that wasn't put down correctly to begin with, because then we're just throwing money away. So the project you talked about 5 years ago, we did a big resurfacing action. We went and evaluated to make sure that what we did there would actually last and it wouldn't start breaking up. Right?
Thank you.
Mr. Peterson, you also need to let our people know that not only do we have the pavement management plan, but we also have people walk the streets that we're going to be looking at in terms of really understanding the visual impact, and also, just like your photographs show when they're out there, are the streets really falling apart? So you have a data through the pavement management plan, but you also have actual visuals, people walking and understanding what's happening in our community with the streets.
Absolutely, yes. So when I said we evaluate 1/3 of the streets each year, that's an actual person out there counting cracks, is what they're doing. Now there's new technology coming out where you can actually hire someone with an automobile and a camera, and they literally can drive the entire street and evaluate them equally without taking different factors into account. So we're always looking for ways to improve our processes to get the most accurate data possible. But right now, we still are using people out on the street counting the distresses in the pavements.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for Mr. Peterson? Okay, thank you, Mr. Peterson. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item on the street reclamation projects? Yes, please come forward and, yeah.
And Mark Cleveland, 604 Crystal Lake Road East. And I appreciate the fact that there's recognition of the street conditions. And I applaud the efforts to try to make our streets safe for the pedestrians and the bicyclists and all of us. So the one thing I did have a question about, and it is, I'd be interested to see if the traffic management has looked at the number of large vehicles traveling on the streets versus pedestrian or just regular folks, passenger cars and vans and what have you, because we do see a lot of traffic, especially on trash day, and we realize that can be a big factor on wear and tear.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Mr. Peterson, and I know you have an answer for that.
Well, neighborhood streets, if there isn't a destination I mean, we get those sometimes on dry or cut-through roads, more or less. But I would argue that the biggest large vehicle that we get on a neighborhood street probably is the 7 trash vehicles we get through on whatever day of the week it is. So we don't necessarily study what percentage of large vehicles are going down a neighborhood street on a particular time. Sometimes it gets brought to our attention, and we'll put more attention to it, but in general, no.
Yeah, I would encourage some thought as we go forward. These are they're definitely a worthwhile activity to repave streets to keep them safe. And I think if we can save on some wear and tear to have them have a longer life expectancy, that would be something I would very much like to see happen. There's also the numbers of vehicles coming through rapidly, and then there's a safety issue with that. But I think it's the wear and tear. Since we're going to pay for new streets, which I do support.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Councilmember Coughlin.
So just sort of anticipating, maybe wrongly, you were going to raise the issue about garbage trucks. That issue's been before the council many times, and boy, there are you raised the issue that in Burnsville and other locations that maybe the city have one garbage truck. Believe me, they get the pitchforks out. People would be full up outside and be very angry. But what we do tell people and encourage them, you can contact your neighbors, knock on their door, and agree on a block or two to just have a certain garbage carrier, and that's totally up to you and your neighbors. And there are some streets and neighborhoods in Burnsville that do that. So if that's a concern of yours, you may want to talk to your neighbors about looking at that option.
Okay. Councilmember Keeley.
Sorry, I didn't push the button.
Push the button.
Just to follow up, I do know of a neighborhood on the other side of Terrace Oaks. The entire neighborhood got together, and they saved anywhere from 20 to 40% on their trash hauling bill as a collective for the whole neighborhood, and they have just one truck. Well, 2 recycling and refuge, and of course in the summertime the lawn clipping recycling truck comes through. But that was a great way for a neighborhood to get together, save money, reduce the number of trucks coming through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Without government getting involved and having to do it for them. Right?
Yeah.
That's really the point.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Is there more? Yes, please. Mr. Anderson, yes.
Yeah, my name is Tom Anderson. I'm at 1719 Slater Lane. I didn't know these council meetings were so darned exciting. You're out again, ready?
All right.
My question or my comment is in regards to cul-de-sacs. I happen to live on the entrance, and when that happens, I get zinged 10 times what the people do that live within the cul-de-sac. Now, they have to use the same street I have to use. In fact, they use more of it than I use to get to their house. So my neighbor and I, who's right across the street, we decided we had a solution for the problem. It's a neighborhood problem, so we're gonna fix it. We're gonna make a tollway where you come into the cul-de-sac, and we're gonna get our money back that way. But I think it's very unfair the way you do it, just because you're zinging people. That, in a sense, you're trying to charge people for the people that are driving on the street. That's what you're trying to do, and you miss it completely on a cul-de-sac. You're not even close. And I did send a letter. You said you didn't get one, but you got one. Somebody got it. I don't know where the hell it went, but it went this direction one day. I thought it was very unfair and for you to look at it. And the other one I thought was kind of interesting. I read your city thing at the beginning of the year where it said your most important things in the city are fire, police, streets, and parks. And that's not true, because there's a whole lot of money that doesn't get spent on streets that's spent on something else after the streets. When you ask us to pay 40% of it, go look at where the rest of that money goes that isn't in those three categories. So you don't live what you say in your report. That's not exactly what's happening. You're spending it somewhere else. I could name some places, but I'm not going to. But again, this is exciting. I really love it. And I grew up in North Dakota, so these streets are wonderful. I was driving on gravel roads, man. This is like heaven when you drive on these streets.
Thank you for your remarks. Anybody else who wishes to speak? Anyone else who wishes to speak? This is a public hearing. Anyone else who wishes to speak?
Excuse me, is this on any topic or specific?
No, just specifically for the road reclamation, yes. Anyone else? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Members of the council, your pleasure.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Coughlin makes the motion, second by Councilmember Keeley. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. We now move on to item number 8. Item number 8 is a public hearing, and this is a resolution ordering the improvement and approving the plans and specifications and ordering the advertisement for bids for the 2017 street reconstruction project, Crystal Lake Road East narrowing. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. This is the last one of these for the evening, and we're going to focus particularly on Crystal Lake Road East. This is Chicago Avenue, Lac Lavon. So particularly from Chicago Avenue to Lac Lavon Drive. As I stated in the last one, this road is already considered as part of reclamation, and what we'll be considering is whether we want to move it into the street reconstruction category, which would be narrowing the road up. And I'll get into that. Here's a recap of how we got to here. May, the council ordered a study for the 2017 street improvement projects. August last year, we sent a letter out alerting them we may be surveying, doing some sewer televising, those sorts of things. So the residents, that's when they kind of hear that we're going to work on the project in 2017. A certain amount of them inquired about how to request the road be narrowed. We helped them draft a petition. That petition was officially received in December of 2016. In January, the public hearing was held, and some options were determined. At that point, we weren't able to decide one way or the other exactly what we wanted to do with this. We were directed to give some more direction on those options. So we provided those options and some more information on those last month in February. And we completed a ballot process for what the residents are thinking after all the additional information came out. And then right now we're at consideration time. So the options that were discussed was option 1, maintain the existing street width, which is what we've already been discussing, 17103. Option 2 would be narrow the road and relocate the sidewalk the entire length. That'd be reconstruction. And then option 3 would be narrow the road and relocate it from Chicago Avenue to the cul-de-sac. So that would be on the west side of it, and then maintain the existing width from the cul-de-sac to the east. So that'd be by the Crystal Beach Park. Street reconstruction, how does it differ from reclamation? Now we're talking, I guess we have the same pavement and gravel base removal and replacement and new pavement, but there would be full curb replacement. Obviously, you got to remove the curbs and replace them to narrow the road up. Also, we'd have extensive driveway extensions out to that new narrowed up road. And then as discussed at the January meeting, the sidewalk would be relocated, so that way there'd be more usable yard space on both sides of the road as opposed to just making a bigger boulevard on the north side. And then there'd be a lot of sod work also necessary for all the area that would be disturbed but not put back with a sidewalk or a street. Utility work, very minor compared to normal reconstruction project. It would only be what's necessary to complete the narrowing. We have to relocate a couple catch basins and those sorts of things. This is similar to the reclamation project. I won't go through these, but if we move forward, there'll be more disruption. We'd have more effect on a party or a gathering. Mail service would, then they'd very highly likely relocate out of there. We'd have to find a place to put a string of mailboxes. And then they'd get their mail there as opposed to right at their house. Schedule of the project would take longer, and you still would be able to get to your home each night, but it would just be a little more challenge. Once again, we'll have the same communication objectives we had on the previous project. So this is this very similar slide, except we're just focusing on Crystal Lake Road from Lac Levon Drive to Chicago Avenue. The cul-de-sac will be just street reclamation. There will be no change to that one either way. So once again, here's a couple pictures of it. This is once again at Lac Levon looking east. You can see the sidewalk. If we were to narrow it up, the sidewalk would move in, give some more room to the yards there. And then the curbs would be brought in both directions. And then this is looking back to the east. And then finally, this would be right at Chicago looking east as well. So this graph shows the additional costs beyond what we're required to do the street reclamation. So the city would be kicking in about a little over $100,000 out of its infrastructure trust fund to pay for these improvements, additional improvements. Special assessments, $75,000, and then the water and sewer, or the sewer utility. This should be down storm sewer, I'm sorry. This is to relocate a couple catch basins, so this is in the wrong spot, but relatively minor cost compared to the rest of it. So almost $200,000 more in total to complete this curb being brought in and the sidewalk relocation. Assessments are the same thing based upon the 40% of the street costs. I won't go through this all again. What I will point out is that assessments, sidewalks relocation is not included in the assessment policy. So therefore, 100% of the relocation would be assessed to the neighborhood for that. Where the staff would propose that both sides of the road would pay for those if we move forward with that equally to share the burden of relocating it. Once again, they can be paid off over a period of years with interest if not paid in full. The rate for reclamation was $17.50. So if we move up to street reconstruction with the curbs, the rate for street reconstruction would increase to $31.76. So not quite double, but close to that. And then for each side of the road, the estimated sidewalk assessment on top of that would be $20 per foot estimated. So we did some balloting of the neighborhood. So we brought forth the options. Option 1 was in orange. That's to keep the road the same width. Option 2 and 3 are grouped together, and those are the purple ones. And then this is an option, no vote was the green. So to summarize, there was 14 votes to keep the road the same width, 3 votes to narrow up the road, and then 3 parcels did not vote at all. So that's what we did with the balloting process, or that's what we heard. So received prior, and we also got a secondary letter from 12, signed by 12 of the residents, also, I think the same folks, but requesting that it stay, opposing the narrowing of the road would be the best way to state that. I'll just point out a couple pros, or a few pros to both options. There are pros to both options, most definitely. Narrowing the road, we agree with the folks who brought the petition forward that it would provide a more neighborhood feel. That's subjective, but we would agree with that at the staff level. You would have more usable yard on both sides of the road if the sidewalk gets relocated, so that's always a bonus. They're generally safer for pedestrians and traffic because of slower speeds. Now I can jump down here. We don't have any known traffic issues on that road. There's no accidents. At the last public hearing, no one discussed a real traffic problem. And sustainability, we'd have more green space, less snow and ice control chemicals would be necessary with less pavement. Future maintenance costs would also be reduced because we have less pavement to maintain. Pros to keeping the road the same width, it's more economical now, and then very likely into the long term, the cost benefit most likely would still stay with keeping it the same width. Like I said, no known traffic issues. There's also sustainability aspect to keeping it the same width because you're not throwing away perfectly adequate curb. So part of sustainability is utilizing what you already have. And then also, obviously, the residents' ballots on that, requesting that the road be kept the same width, or that's the general summarization of that. Recommendations, options, the staff is recommending to, the way the resolution is termed, determining not to narrow the road and keep the project in the street reclamation category. The reasons for that is the majority of the residents don't want it narrowed. Our cost, the cost to the taxpayer is significantly less. $100,000 can go a long ways on some other pavement projects. I think if the curbs needed to be removed for a different reason, if we were replacing the water main, the story could be very different here. But because you'd already have to remove them, put them back, but since they don't need to be removed, that's how staff ended up at this point. If you, other options though, if you decide you want to narrow the road, then we'd recommend approving standard resolution, moving forward with street reconstruction. If we're going down that road, then we'll have to try to figure out if we want to narrow the entire length or just narrow the west half. We won't get into that until you decide this is what you want to do. And then the final option would be to bid alternates, and then you could find out actual costs on those. Okay. So that would be just extending it out further, and we could provide that. So with that, I am obviously available for any questions, and it's a public hearing.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Peterson? Thank you very much. Now, I know that there are a lot of folks who would like to speak, but we also have those wanting to keep the road the way it is. If you just have one person who would speak for your group, because we've received the petition, and we also know that you don't. We've seen the survey, and that's what we have here. So if you have one person to speak for the people who want to keep the road the way that it is, and then I see someone from the back who wishes to speak, yes. So would you like to come and speak first, please? Give us your name and address for the record, and then others can also speak. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Holly Vowles. I live at 15010 Oakland Avenue. I've been a resident of this neighborhood since 1975, same house. So I know I've seen a lot of changes, as you can imagine. What I wanted to say, I actually came to get information about what was happening on my street, but then I learned of this narrowing of the street. And I'm a little befuddled because I haven't heard a really good reason. I go down and I walk that area. I take grandchildren that area. I bike that area. Been going down there, as I said, over 40 years to Crystal Lake Beach and that park. And you may ask, well, why I'm up here? Because I'm not going to be assessed if it goes through as far as my house. But I have been a citizen of Burnsville even before 1975. And I don't see, for a light cosmetic reason, spending $100,000 out of the general budget when we have so many other needs in this community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for speaking up. Anybody else who wishes to speak on this item? Because we know most of you who are there don't want the street to be narrow. Please come forward, give us your name and address for the record.
I'm Randall Ross, and I'm at 1116 Crystal Lake Road, where I
Yes.
live with my lovely wife, Chris. I'll be brief, as it does seem like the tide that came in at the January meeting has gone back out again, so we don't need to do too much. I would like to preface what I'm about to say, that we're fortunate to live in a place and a time and a community where we can voice our opinions.
Absolutely.
In an atmosphere of respect and decorum. So we do appreciate that and all the work. And I would like to give, I know that this tide coming in and going out has provided extra work for Ryan and for Heather and her staff. So we do thank you guys that we made you jump through some hoops. It's probably underappreciated and under-remunerated as well. But the last time we spoke, based on information that we had at that time, I was one of the original signers of the petition because it was going to be $1,800. The last time we spoke, it had gone up to 4,000. Two things have happened, and one of them you already reviewed. I won't go into it. But Dale Anderson and I walked the neighborhood and just openly talked to both sides of the street and explained what we knew at that point was going to be a much higher dollar figure. There has been a subsequent also increase to that. The sidewalks, we missed it at $45 to $9 or $4.50 to $9 a foot last time. I think we kind of missed that one pretty good. So for my wife and I, this is now up to somewhere maybe as high as $6,000 with irrigation and everything that we would have to do, which I don't have to, tell you how $6,000. And it does feel like the only overwhelming majority really would like to see the tax dollars go someplace else. As everybody has stated, there's a lot of other uses for that money at this time. It just does not seem like it's in the best interest of the city or specifically our street. There would be benefit to a few, but at the cost to the many, including all of your constituents from the whole city. We just don't find that that's real good, frugal, and really good, stewardship of the city. And I'll cut it at that because it seems like we've covered a lot of what I was going to cover already. I'll go sit down, and I thank you for letting me represent the rabble in the first 3 rows here.
Thank you so much. It's very kind of you. But we know what the majority wants done. I mean, it's very clear right here. So is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this item? Seeing no one else, I will close the public hearing. Councilmember Gustafson.
I think to answer your question you had about why we're talking about this, I believe the neighborhood brought the project to us with a petition to narrow the streets. That was not an initiative of the city, from what I understand, correct?
That's 100% correct.
Okay. And yes, the majority has spoken on this.
So it's, any other comments, or do we have yes, Councilmember Coughlin?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Please do.
Motion to leave the road as it is, the width as it is, with the majority of the folks that have spoken.
Second.
There is a motion by Councilmember Coughlin, second by Councilmember Keeley, to leave the street as it is and do not narrow it. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. Good evening. We are now on item number 9. Item number 9 is the special meeting of the Economic Development Authority, and I will recess the Burnsville City Council meeting so the Economic Development Authority meeting can convene.
Thank you.
President Keeley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll now convene the Burnsville Economic Development Authority. Let the record show we have all commissioners present. Commissioners, on our consent agenda, we have minutes of our February 7th meeting. Any comments or changes? I'm sorry, additions to the final agenda? We have such a long agenda, I know that there's...
I think you have A and B under consent. Or are you going to pull?
Yes. So under our consent, we have A and B. I apologize. I'm going to pull B. I guess I'll say on our consent agenda, we have 2 items, approval of the minutes and also item B, which I would like pulled. Do I hear a motion to approval of the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Commissioner Coughlin. Seconded by...
Second.
By, sorry, Commissioner Couch.
Because you guys...
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the motion carries. For item B, this is approve the joint powers agreement between the Dakota County Community Development Agency, otherwise known as CDA, and the City of Burnsville to engage the Metropolitan Consortium of Community Developers, the MCCD, to undertake the, quote, open to business, end quote, program within Dakota County. Commissioners, this is an existing program. This is a renewal, and because this had such a great story to tell, I felt like it deserved more than consent agenda. To speak on this issue, we do have Skip Nienhaus, our Director of Economic Development.
Yes, coordinator.
Coordinator.
Thank you, Mr.
Skip.
President. The item before you has actually been in existence in the city of Burnsville for the past 4 years. It is a partnership between the CDA and the cities in Dakota County. The partnership provides consulting services to any business in Dakota County or any resident in Dakota County looking to open a business. And that consulting service is provided at absolutely no cost to the business or the resident. The cost of the consulting service is split between the CDA, which the CDA picks up half of the cost, and the cities in Dakota County pick up the other half based on population. For the first 4 years of this initiative, the cost to the city of Burnsville has been $7,500 per year. For this year, the cost will rise slightly to $76.66, and that is reflected in the EDA budget for 2017. This initiative, as President Keeley has stated, has been an exceptionally good initiative to us. Over the 4 years, our consultant has averaged about 32 new clients per year in the city of Burnsville. I'm very proud to say that over the 4 years, the city of Burnsville has ranked either first or second in the number of new clients generated each year. A lot of the credit for that goes to the expertise of our consultant, and also, quite frankly, goes to our communications department, who from day one has done an exemplary job of marketing this program out to our businesses and our residents. If you look at the cost this year of $76.66 and you compare this against any other consulting services that we typically engage as a city or an EDA, this is an extremely small cost for the return that we get. And staff would recommend that you approve the JPA, and I would certainly stand for any questions.
Thank you, Skip.
Yeah.
Any questions, commissioners?
No, it's been a wonderful program, and Mr. President, I would like to move to approve the joint powers agreement.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Couts,
Second.
second by Commissioner Coughlin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Neeshoff.
commissioners.
The motion passes. Commissioners, we have no other items on our regular agenda. A motion to
adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Coughlin, second by Commissioner Gustafson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. And we'll close the Burnsville Economic Development Authority and turn the meeting back over to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Keeley. There are no other items to come before the body this evening, but we have a gentleman who would like to speak, so I'm going to exercise miscellaneous this evening. And sir, would you like to come to the podium, please? Give us your name and address.
My name is Paul Bryant, and I'm homeless.
Okay, Mr. Bryant?
And how much time do I have? I don't want to go over.
2 to 3 minutes,
2 minutes?
sir. I
Okay.
mean, I don't know what you want to ask us, but
Oh, there's so much I want to say, but I wrote down a couple of items. I just kind of wanted to share with you a couple of the experiences I've had being homeless out here, mainly for about the last 6 months that might be relevant. And frankly, they're mostly positive, but I just thought you should know about them, and I really wish
Thank
the
you.
community would know about them.
well, they are now because
yeah.
you're on TV.
The opportunities to end this problem, at least for many people, are abundant, but nothing's being done, and that's the sadness. The reason I'm late today is because I'm completely out of money. I have sold off everything I've worked for my whole life since starting to work at age 13. And I'm sane, I'm sober, I've never used drugs in my life, I'm a professional. I went to college for 9 years to work as a professional, and I'm very good at it. It's inexcusable that I'm homeless. The shelter system does not work, period, for people in my situation. The state has as much as told me they could care less. And that's why I wanted to kind of give a little bit of compliment here to Burnsville. Since I've been in Burnsville, particularly your police department. A police department north of the cities is one of the main reasons I'm homeless. They refused to enforce the law on my behalf when I was being terrorized by my neighbors. That's how I lost my home. Your department is spectacular. And not only do I feel that they care about me, but I've come to care about them, the ones that I've met. Don't lose that, please.
Yes.
Along those lines, I'd also like to say some communities and states have gone toward criminalizing homelessness, which when you're actually in the situation, that's when you realize that's akin to genocide off camera. May you never, ever go in that direction. You are not there now, and I'm so grateful. And so I'm speaking for a lot of homeless people I've met. Please never go there. And the reason is because if you ever look at, say, the Stanley Milgram Prison Experiment out of Stanford University, or Philip Lombardo's, Philip Lombardo's, the Lucifer effect. If you look at those, you see what happens when there's legislation to do bad things to people. The people who were good become bad, and that's how, for example, a police department could descend into madness. What you have now is very, very good. The only problem I've really had here is that the community itself has shown nothing but contempt for me. I'm the guy who lives in his car that people point at. 2 years ago, I was shaking Governor Dayton's hand. I've created a website that explains all of that, but nobody visits. The other two things I'd like to mention really quick. One reason my car has been destroyed over this period, it's just one reason, but it's a significant one. I've had to go to the pawn shop. I have a whole box full of receipts, losing everything I own, and that means traveling down County Road 42 across 35W up to Pawn America. There's about 6 stoplights there. They're all uphill no matter what direction you're going. The timing there is terrible, and it fried my engine. When you have to drive that as often as I did with a car that I couldn't maintain properly. And it just, I think it just made me hyper aware of what a nuisance that was driving through there. So you might look at traffic control in that area. And the last thing would be having so much experience with pawn shops that I never had before. There's a $1 charge that I believe this body assessed for pawn transactions. And please, I understand why you did it, I really do. They explained it to me. It makes sense from your standpoint. But from our standpoint, please realize when you go to pawn an item, if I'm going to pawn something that my mother gave me from my birthday when I was, a teenager, that's not a good situation. It's a desperate situation. And when there's a $1 charge added, both when I pawn it and hopefully ever have a prayer of a chance of getting it back, it's a burden. We're not the people who need that burden. So I would ask you to maybe, reassess it. I'm not saying it's wrong, because I do understand why you need the charge. But, am I able to say what my video channel is? I don't think publicly I could.
If you want to, you can certainly do that, sir, and then.
Just because my videos explain a lot of these things in great detail, I'm very
Sure.
proud of those videos,
Sure.
and frankly, I fear that that's what I'm going to be leaving behind. Forgive me for the URL, it's the only one I had left. I lost about 20 URLs. It's www.humanstupidity.com. It's the only one I had left, and thank you again, though. I mean,
well, thank you for coming in.
this community has been...
Thank you for coming in and talking to us. And
appreciate
one
the
of the things that I'm sure our police officers who have interacted with you have shared with you, that we work with Dakota County on all of these issues with regard to the homeless. And there's probably some things that you can access in working with them. The other is that our faith community, we work with them in partnership, will go a long way in also helping you, sir.
Well, I went to more than 100 Christian churches in Minnesota, and none of them responded. And some of the things they've done to me are among the most cruel things I've ever experienced. So that's kind of what my videos portray. Also going through Dakota County. They do well with people who have drug and substance abuse problems, but somebody who just wants their professional life back and is very competent, they almost wish I wasn't there, because it reveals the problems with the way homelessness is handled. And I think that's what my videos try to explain.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate
Thank you. Thank you for coming in. Members of the council, there is no other item to come before us this evening, and a motion to adjourn is in order.
Adjourn.
Second.
Councilmember Keeley makes the motion, second by Councilmember Gustafson. Coughlin, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us this evening.